The rain came down in sheets that night, turning the cobblestone streets into rivers of darkness. Elara Moonveil pressed herself against the cold brick wall of an alleyway, her thin dress soaked through, her dark hair plastered to her face. Behind her, somewhere in the maze of wealthy estates that line the northern district, her stepfather would be searching. He always searched. She had waited until the house fell silent, until the last light in his study finally went dark, until she could count 50 heartbeats without hearing his footsteps on the floor above her room. Then she had climbed out her window, just as she'd planned for months, and run. Her bare feet were bleeding. She hadn't dared take time to find shoes. The cuts didn't matter. Nothing mattered except putting distance between herself and that house. That man. That life. Elara stumbled forward, her lungs burning. The noble quarter was deserted at this hour. Everyone safe in their beds. Everyone except her. A black limousine sat idling at the corner, its engine a quiet purr in the storm. The driver had stepped away, probably seeking shelter from the downpour. The vehicle gleamed under the street lamps, water sliding off its polished surface like liquid silver. She didn't think. She simply moved. The back door opened smoothly under her trembling fingers. The interior was warm, leather-scented, and blessedly dry. Elara crawled inside and pulled the door closed behind her, curling into the shadows of the footwell. She made herself as small as possible, wrapping her arms around her knees, trying to control her breathing. Just for a moment, just until the rain stopped. Then she would run again. Her stepfather, Clyde Voss, had taken her in when her mother died 3 years ago. The arrangement had seemed like mercy at first. He was wealthy, respected, a businessman with connections throughout the territory. But mercy had turned to control. Control had turned to something darker. He never struck her. He didn't need to. His words were enough. His presence was enough. The way he watched her. The way he reminded her constantly that she had nowhere else to go. No one else who would take in a girl with no family, no fortune, no value. She had started to believe him. That was the worst part. She had almost forgotten what it felt like to hope. The driver's door opened. Elara held her breath, pressing herself deeper into the shadows. The engine shifted, and the limousine began to move, gliding smoothly over the wet streets. She squeezed her eyes shut. Maybe he wouldn't notice. Maybe she could slip out at the next stop. Maybe... The vehicle suddenly accelerated. Then it stopped, and Elara's entire world changed. The back door opened, and cold night air rushed in. She looked up, her heart hammering, and met eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. Gold. Piercing. Ancient. The man standing in the rain was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit that somehow made him look even more dangerous. His dark hair was wet, pushed back from a face that could have been carved from stone. But it was his scent that hit her first. Pine and smoke and something wild. Something that made her wolf stir for the first time in years. She had almost forgotten she had a wolf. Clyde had taught her to suppress it, to hide it, to be ashamed of it. But this man's presence called to something deep inside her. Something primal. "Who are you?" His voice was deep, controlled, but she heard the edge beneath it. Not anger. Something else. Surprise, perhaps. Or recognition. Elara scrambled backward, her back hitting the opposite door. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean..." "Stop." The single word cut through her panic. He didn't move closer, but his presence filled the entire space. "You're hurt." She looked down at her feet, seeing the blood for the first time. Dark stains on the pristine floor mats. "I'll go." I'll leave right now. I'm sorry about the... I asked who you are. His tone hadn't changed, but something in it made her answer. Elara. Elara Moonveil. He went very still. His nostrils flared slightly, and his eyes narrowed. For a long moment, he simply stared at her, and Elara felt pinned by that gaze, examined, measured, recognized. You're running from something. It wasn't a question. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Someone. Another nod. He made a decision. She saw it happen in the shift of his shoulders, the slight tilt of his head. Driver. The palace. North entrance. Sir? The driver's voice came from the front, uncertain. Now. The limousine moved forward again, faster this time. Elara's mind spun. Palace. He had said palace, which meant, "You're the Alpha King." The words came out as barely a whisper. Derek Nightborne didn't answer immediately. He was still watching her with that unnerving intensity. And you're my mate. The world tilted. Elara had heard about mate bonds. Every wolf knew the stories. The instant recognition. The pull. The certainty. But those were fairy tales. They didn't happen to girls like her. Girls who hid in the shadows and learned to make themselves invisible. That's not possible, she breathed. Your wolf knows it's true. He was right. Her wolf was awake now, alert in a way she hadn't felt in years. Reaching toward him. Yearning. Elara shook her head violently. No, you don't understand. I can't. I'm nobody. I don't belong anywhere near a palace or a king or... You belong with me. The certainty in his voice terrified her more than Clyde's threats ever had. Because part of her wanted to believe it. Part of her wanted to stop running and let this stranger, this king, this impossible man claim her. But she had learned the hard way what happened when you let someone have power over you. Please. Her voice cracked. Just let me out. Anywhere. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. Derek's expression didn't soften, but something flickered in those golden eyes. You're bleeding, soaked to the bone, and terrified. I'm not putting you out on a street corner in the middle of the night. He paused, then added more quietly, You're safe now. I give you my word. Words. Clyde had given her words too. Promises that turned to ash. But this felt different. This man felt different. And Elara was so tired, so cold, so desperate for somewhere to hide, even if just for one night. She pulled her knees tighter to her chest and said nothing. Derek seemed to accept her silence. He removed his jacket and held it out to her. When she didn't move, he draped it carefully over her shoulders, his fingers never touching her skin. The jacket was warm from his body heat and carried that intoxicating scent of pine and smoke. Elara buried herself in it and tried not to cry. The palace loomed out of the darkness like something from a dream. Towers of white stone, lit from within, surrounded by gardens that even the rain couldn't diminish. Guards stood at attention as the limousine passed through massive iron gates that closed silently behind them. Elara watched it all through the tinted window, her heart sinking with each meter they traveled deeper into the grounds. This was a mistake. She didn't belong in places like this. She belonged in the shadows, in the background, where people like Clyde had taught her to stay. The vehicle stopped at a side entrance, away from the main doors. Derek stepped out first, then turned back to her. He didn't reach for her. Didn't demand, simply waited. Elara made herself move. Her legs trembled as she climbed out, and she swayed on her feet. Derek's hand shot out, steadying her elbow, then immediately released her once she had her balance. This way. He led her through corridors of polished marble and soft lighting. Servants appeared and disappeared like ghosts, their eyes widening when they saw their king escorting a bedraggled girl through the palace halls. But none spoke. None questioned. They climbed a staircase to the 3rd floor, then down another hallway to a set of double doors. Derek pushed them open, revealing a suite that was larger than the entire floor of Clyde's house where Elara had lived. "The guest wing," Derek explained. "You'll stay here tonight. The doors lock from the inside. No one will disturb you." Elara stepped into the room, her bare feet sinking into carpet so thick it felt like walking on clouds. A massive bed dominated one wall, piled with pillows. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens, rain still streaming down the glass. Another door led to what she assumed was a bathroom. It was beautiful, overwhelming, wrong. "I can't stay here," she said, her voice small. "You can. You will." Derek moved to a wardrobe and pulled out a soft robe. "There are clothes that should fit you. Bathroom is through there. Take as long as you need." He was already moving toward the door. "Wait!" Elara didn't know why she called out. Maybe because for all his power and authority, he hadn't once made her feel trapped. "Why are you helping me?" Derek paused at the threshold, his hand on the doorframe. He looked back at her, and the weight of his gaze made her breath catch. "Because you're mine to protect now, whether you accept the bond or not." His voice dropped lower. "And because no one should have to run in the rain with bleeding feet, afraid of what's behind them." Then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. Elara stood alone in the beautiful room and finally let the tears come. Sunlight woke Elara. Real sunlight, not filtered through the heavy curtains Clyde had insisted she keep drawn. She opened her eyes to find herself in the softest bed she had ever touched, wearing a nightgown that smelled of lavender, her hair clean and her feet bandaged. For one perfect moment, she didn't remember. Then it all came rushing back. The escape, the limousine, the Alpha King. Mate. Elara sat up quickly, her heart racing. The room looked different in daylight. Even more elegant, even more impossible. Through the windows, she could see the palace gardens stretching out in geometric perfection, fountains catching the morning light. A soft knock came at the door. She froze. "Yes?" "Miss Moonveil? I'm Maybelle Cross. His Majesty asked me to attend you this morning." Elara pulled the blankets up to her chin. "Come in." The woman who entered was middle-aged, with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. She carried a tray that smelled of fresh bread and tea. "Good morning, dear. I hope you slept well." No one had called her dear since her mother died. The simple kindness made Elara's throat tight. Yes, thank you." Maybelle set the tray on a small table near the window, then moved to the wardrobe. "I've brought some clothes that should suit you. His Majesty was quite specific about making sure you had everything you needed." She pulled out a simple but beautiful dress in deep blue. "Will this do?" Elara stared at the dress. It was nicer than anything she'd owned in years. "It's too much." "Nonsense. You're a guest of the king. You'll dress as one." Maybelle's tone was brisk but warm. "Now, eat your breakfast while it's hot. His Majesty wishes to speak with you this afternoon, but there's no rush." The food was incredible. Fresh bread with butter that melted on her tongue. Fruit she couldn't name. Tea that warmed her from the inside. Elara ate slowly, savoring each bite, trying not to think about what "His Majesty wishes to speak with you" might mean. After breakfast, Maybelle helped her dress and showed her how to navigate the suite. There was a small sitting room she hadn't noticed the night before, stocked with books, a balcony overlooking the rose garden, a bathroom with a tub large enough to swim in. "If you need anything at all, just pull that cord." Maybelle pointed to a braided rope near the door. "Someone will come immediately." "Maybelle?" Elara caught her arm as she turned to leave. "Why is everyone being so kind to me?" The older woman smiled. Because you're important to him. That makes you important to all of us. After Maybelle left, Elara explored the sitting room. She pulled a book from the shelf at random, a collection of poetry, and settled into a chair by the window. But she couldn't focus on the words. Her mind kept returning to last night, to golden eyes and impossible claims. Mate. She didn't know what to do with that information. Didn't know how to process it. Part of her wanted to believe in fairy tales and destined love. But Clyde had taught her better, had taught her that people who claimed to care always wanted something in return. What did an alpha king want from a girl with nothing? The answer came in the afternoon, when a different servant knocked and informed her that His Majesty was ready to receive her. Elara's hands shook as she smoothed down her dress. She followed the servant through the palace, memorizing each turn in case she needed to run again. They descended to the second floor, down a wide corridor lined with portraits of stern-looking wolves in royal regalia, and stopped at a set of carved wooden doors. His Majesty's private study, the servant announced, then withdrew. Elara knocked softly. Enter. Derek's voice sent a shiver down her spine. She pushed open the door and stepped into a room that was somehow both grand and comfortable. Books lined 3 walls floor to ceiling. A massive desk sat before the windows, covered in papers and maps. And standing at those windows, silhouetted against the afternoon light, was the Alpha King. He turned when she entered, and Elara's breath caught. In daylight, he was even more striking. His features were sharp, aristocratic, but there was warmth in his eyes that hadn't been there in the darkness. He'd rolled up the sleeves of his white shirt, and she could see the edge of a tattoo on his forearm. Some sort of pack symbol, probably. Elara, thank you for coming. He gestured to a pair of chairs near the fireplace. Please, sit. She sat, perching on the edge of the chair, ready to bolt. Derek settled into the other chair, close enough that she could smell that pine and smoke scent again. Her wolf stirred restlessly. He studied her for a moment, then spoke. I need to know who you're running from. Straight to the point. No preamble. Elara appreciated that more than he could know. My stepfather, Clyde Voss. Derek's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Recognition. The merchant. You know him? I know of him. He has trade contracts with several border packs. A respected businessman, by all accounts. Derek leaned forward slightly. Tell me why you ran. Elara looked down at her hands. How did you explain years of subtle cruelty, of isolation and control, of feeling like you were slowly disappearing? He never hit me, she said quietly. I want you to understand that. He was never violent. But he made sure I knew I had nowhere else to go, that I was nothing without him, that I should be grateful he took me in after my mother died. The words came faster now, spilling out. He chose my clothes, my food, who I could talk to, which was no one. He locked my bedroom door at night. He told me my wolf was shameful, that I should suppress it, that no decent pack would want someone like me. Her voice dropped to a whisper. And I believed him. For 3 years I believed every word. Derek's hands tightened on the arms of his chair. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. What changed? Last week I overheard him talking to someone. A business associate, I think. They were discussing a contract, an arrangement. She forced herself to meet Derek's eyes. He was selling me. To some pack in the Southern Territories. As a... I understand. Derek cut her off gently, saving her from having to say it. His jaw was tight, his eyes hard. Did he tell you when? This week, maybe tomorrow. I don't know exactly. That's why I ran last night. Silence fell between them. Derek stood and moved to the window, his back to her. She watched the tension in his shoulders, the controlled fury in every line of his body. "You're safe here," he said finally. "Clyde Voss has no authority in this palace. No claim on you. You have my protection." "For how long?" The question escaped before she could stop it. Derek turned, his golden eyes finding hers. "As long as you need it. As long as you want it." He paused. "Forever, if you'll allow it." There it was. The catch. The price. "Because I'm your mate." Her voice was flat. "Yes." He didn't try to soften it or dress it up. "The bond is real, Elara. I felt it the moment you looked at me. I suspect you felt it too." She had. She did. Even now, sitting across from him, every instinct she possessed screamed at her to close the distance between them, to let him touch her, to accept what he was offering. But instinct had nearly trapped her before. "I don't know anything about you," she said. "You could be worse than Clyde." Derek's expression softened slightly. "I could be. You have no reason to trust me." He moved back to his chair but didn't sit. Instead, he crouched in front of her, bringing himself to her eye level. "So I'm going to give you a choice. Stay here as my guest, in those rooms, with your door locked from the inside. Learn about me. Learn about this place. Decide for yourself if you want this bond or not." "And if I decide I don't want it?" Pain flashed across his face, but his voice remained steady. "Then I'll help you start a new life somewhere safe. New identity, new pack if you want one. Resources to build whatever future you choose." Elara stared at him. "You would just let me go?" "I want a mate who chooses me, Elara. Not one who stays because she's afraid, or because she has nowhere else to go." His voice deepened. "I've waited 2 centuries for you. I can wait a little longer for you to be sure." 2 centuries. The Alpha King was ancient by wolf standards, powerful beyond measure, and he was offering her a choice. Real choice, not the illusion of it. "What if my stepfather comes looking for me?" she asked. Derek's smile was cold. Let him try. Something inside Elara loosened. Not trust, not yet, but the first crack in the armor she'd built around herself. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll stay. For now." Derek nodded and stood. "I have council meetings this afternoon, but tonight, if you're willing, I'd like to have dinner with you. Nothing formal, just a chance to talk." "In the dining hall?" "In your sitting room, if you prefer. Or mine. Or in the gardens. Wherever you feel comfortable." Another choice. Another small freedom. "The gardens," Elara decided, "if the weather holds." "Then the gardens it is." Derek moved toward his desk, giving her space. "Maybelle will come for you at sunset." Elara stood, suddenly unsure how to leave. "Did you bow to a king? Curtsy? Run?" "Elara?" Derek's voice stopped her at the door. "You were brave to run. Don't doubt that." She looked back at him. This powerful man who claimed she belonged to him, and saw only sincerity in his face. "Thank you," she whispered, and fled. The gardens at sunset were breathtaking. Elara stood on a stone path that wound between beds of flowers she couldn't name, watching the sky turn gold and pink and deep purple. Maybelle had helped her dress in a simple gown of soft green, and for the first time in years, Elara felt almost pretty. Almost. Derek appeared from a side path, dressed more casually than before in dark trousers and a white shirt. He carried a basket, and Elara caught the scent of food. "I thought we might have a picnic," he explained. "The formal dining room can be intimidating." He led her to a gazebo surrounded by climbing roses. A blanket had already been spread on the wooden floor, with cushions and soft lighting from hanging lanterns. It was private, secluded, safe. They settled across from each other, and Derek began unpacking the basket. Cold chicken, fresh bread, cheese, fruit, and wine. Simple food, but perfect. "Tell me about yourself," Elara said as they ate. "If I'm supposed to learn about you, I should start somewhere." Derek smiled slightly. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Nothing. I don't know." She took a breath. "Start with how you became king." "I was born into it," Derek said. "My father ruled before me, and his father before him. The Nightborne line has held the throne for 5 centuries. He paused. "I took the crown when I was 60. My father died in a border dispute with a neighboring territory. I've been king ever since." "That's a long time to rule alone." "It is." His golden eyes found hers. "I've had advisors, of course. Council members. Generals, friends. But no mate. I had begun to think I never would." "Why?" "Because mate bonds are rare. Most wolves never find theirs. I met thousands of females over the years. Felt nothing." He leaned back against the gazebo railing. "I'd resigned myself to an arranged marriage eventually, for the good of the pack. But I kept delaying." "Why?" "Hope." The word was simple but heavy. Foolish hope that somewhere you existed. Elara's heart stuttered. She looked away, focusing on her food. "That's a lot of pressure to put on a stranger." "I'm not asking you to be a fairy tale, Elara. I'm asking you to be yourself." Derek's voice was gentle. "Tell me about you now. What did you do before your mother died?" "I was a student," Elara said. "I wanted to be a teacher. I loved books, learning, helping others understand difficult concepts." Her voice grew wistful. "My mother encouraged it. She said I had a gift for making complicated things simple. And Clyde ended that. He said formal education was unnecessary for someone in my position, that I should focus on becoming a proper household manager." Bitterness crept into her tone. "He took away my books, said they gave me ideas above my station." Derek's expression darkened. "What else did he take?" "Everything, but she couldn't say that out loud. Not yet." "My wolf," she said instead. "He hated that I could shift. Said it was common, unrefined. He made me suppress her until I almost forgot she existed." "And now?" Elara felt her wolf stir at the question, awake and aware. "Now she's waking up. Because of you." "Because of us," Derek corrected. "The bond calls to both parts of you." They ate in comfortable silence for a while. The sun disappeared completely, leaving them in the soft glow of lantern light. Stars emerged overhead, brilliant against the dark sky. "Can I ask you something?" Elara said eventually. "Anything." "Why are you being so patient with me? You're an alpha king. You could just claim me and be done with it." Derek's jaw tightened. "Is that what you think alphas do? Take what they want regardless of consent?" "Isn't it?" "No." His voice was firm. "Real strength isn't about domination, Elara. It's about control. Discipline. Knowing when to fight and when to wait." He leaned forward. "You've been controlled and manipulated. The last thing you need is another man telling you what to do and how to feel. Even if I'm supposed to be yours? Especially then." Derek's eyes held hers. "When you accept this bond, if you accept it, I want it to be because you've chosen it with full freedom and knowledge, not because you were forced or coerced or had no other option." Elara's throat tightened. "You sound very certain I'll accept it eventually." "I'm hopeful." His smile was slight. "But if I'm wrong, I'll survive. I've lived 2 centuries. I can live more without a mate if necessary." "But you'd rather not." "No, I'd rather not." His honesty was disarming. "You're extraordinary, Elara. I felt that the moment I scented you." brave and broken and beautiful. I want the chance to know you, to earn your trust, to show you what love can be when it's freely given. Love. He'd said love. Elara's hands trembled. She set down her wine glass before she dropped it. This is too much. Too fast. Then we'll go slower. Derek didn't move closer. Didn't push. We have time. But did they? Somewhere out there, Clyde was looking for her. She knew him well enough to know he wouldn't give up easily. She was valuable to him. Property to be traded. Derek? She used his name for the first time, and saw his eyes flare at the sound. What happens when my stepfather finds out I'm here? He won't. He will. Eventually, he has connections. He's not stupid. Derek's expression turned cold. Let me worry about Clyde Voss. You focus on healing. I don't need healing. I need answers. Elara's voice rose. You keep telling me I'm safe, but you won't tell me how. You won't tell me what you know about him. You won't tell me what happens next. Because I don't want to frighten you. I'm already frightened. She was standing now, though she didn't remember moving. I've been frightened for 3 years. What I need is truth, not protection. Derek stood as well, towering over her. But instead of using his height to intimidate, he took a careful step back, giving her space. You're right. I'm sorry. Elara blinked. What? You're right. You deserve honesty. Derek ran a hand through his hair. I've been investigating Clyde Voss since this morning. I had my intelligence network pull every record, every contract, every documented interaction he's had with the Crown. And there are inconsistencies. Gaps in his financial records. Transactions that don't match his declared income. Meetings with individuals from rival packs. Derek's voice dropped. I think your stepfather is involved in something much larger than an illegal mating contract. And I think that's why he kept you so isolated. Not just for control, but to keep you from seeing or hearing something you shouldn't. The world tilted again. Elara sank back onto the cushions. Like what? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Derek crouched in front of her again, his face level with hers. That's why you need to stay here. Not just because of the mate bond, but because you might be in more danger than either of us realized. From Clyde? From whoever Clyde is working with. Elara's mind raced. She thought back to the late-night meetings, the visitors who came through the back entrance, the coded conversations she'd overheard but never understood. She'd always assumed it was just business. Boring merchant affairs. What if it wasn't? I need to think, she said. I need air. We're in the gardens. I need more air. She stood again, pacing. I need to process this. Derek nodded and stepped back, giving her the entire gazebo. Take your time. I'll be here. Elara walked to the edge of the structure, gripping the railing. Her wolf was agitated, feeding off her emotions. Fear. Confusion. Anger. And underneath it all, that maddening pull toward the man standing patiently behind her. She wanted to trust him, wanted to believe in safety and mates and second chances. But every instinct screamed that trusting led to pain. Elara. Derek's voice was soft. Look at me. She turned. He stood in the center of the gazebo, hands loose at his sides, expression open. I give you my word as Alpha King. Whatever secrets your stepfather is hiding, whatever danger you're in, I will protect you. Not because you're my mate, but because it's the right thing to do. You're under my roof now. That makes you my responsibility. I don't want to be anyone's responsibility. Then what do you want? The question hung in the air between them. What did she want? Freedom, yes. Safety, obviously. But beyond that? I want to matter, she whispered. Not because of some bond or some contract or because I'm useful to someone. I want to matter because I'm me. Derek crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. He didn't touch her, but he was close enough that she could feel his warmth. You already do. To me. From the moment you looked at me with terror in your eyes and apologized for bleeding on my car floor. You mattered. That's just the bond talking. The bond tells me you're my mate. My heart tells me you're someone worth knowing. There's a difference. His voice dropped lower. Give me time to prove it. Elara looked up at him, at this impossible king with his patient eyes and careful words. He was nothing like Clyde, nothing like any man she'd known. And that terrified her almost as much as it thrilled her. Okay, she breathed. Time. But slowly. As slow as you need. They stood there in the darkness, surrounded by roses and starlight, and Elara felt something shift inside her chest. Not trust, not yet, but possibility. Maybe fairy tales did exist. Maybe some stories had happy endings. Maybe she deserved one too. 3 days passed. 3 days of careful meals and cautious conversations. 3 days of Derek showing Elara the palace, introducing her to key staff, teaching her about pack politics without pressure or expectation. 3 days of her wolf growing stronger, more present, more demanding. And 3 days of investigation into Clyde Voss that yielded disturbing results. Elara sat in Derek's study on the 4th morning, reviewing documents spread across a side table. Maybelle had brought tea, and outside the windows, rain fell in steady sheets. It seemed appropriate somehow. The weather matching her mood. These ledgers don't make sense, she said, frowning at a column of numbers. Clyde imported textiles from the southern packs, but these volumes are wrong. He couldn't have moved this much fabric through legitimate channels. Derek looked up from his desk. He'd been working on correspondence but had encouraged her to examine Clyde's records. To use her mind, he'd said, to help him see patterns he might have missed. What do you mean? The southern border crossings have weight limits. Inspections. These quantities would have required dozens of wagons and special permits. She tapped the page. But according to these customs records, he only declared a fraction of this. So he was smuggling. Derek came around the desk to stand beside her. But smuggling what? Not textiles. Elara pulled another document closer. These are meeting notes from 6 months ago. He mentions a shipment of special goods to the Eastern Territories. He uses code words, but I remember this conversation. I heard him talking to someone named Rufus about it. Derek stiffened. Rufus Haskins? I don't know his surname, just Rufus. He visited the house several times. She frowned, remembering. He made me uncomfortable. The way he looked at me. Like I was something to be evaluated and priced. Rufus Haskins is a known arms dealer, Derek said quietly. He operates in the gray areas between territories, selling weapons to anyone willing to pay. Elara's blood ran cold. Clyde was selling weapons? It appears so, which means he was facilitating conflicts between packs, starting wars for profit. Derek's jaw was tight. That's treason. The study door opened, and a tall man with silver hair entered. He wore the formal uniform of a royal guard, and his presence commanded immediate attention. Derek straightened, and Elara recognized the automatic response of an alpha to a trusted beta. Harlan, Derek greeted him. What news? Harlan Bonner, Derek's head of security, bowed briefly to Elara before addressing the king. We've confirmed Voss's connection to the mercenary group that attacked the western border last year. The weapons used in that raid trace back to his trade routes. Elara's hand flew to her mouth. People died in that attack. 17 wolves, Harlan confirmed grimly. And twice that number injured. We never found the source of the weapons. Now we know why. Derek's expression was carved from stone. Where is Voss now? Still in the city. He's been making inquiries about his missing stepdaughter. Subtle ones. Through intermediaries. Harlan's eyes flicked to Elara. He doesn't know she's here. Yet. Keep it that way. Derek turned to Elara. I need to ask you something. And I need you to think carefully before answering. She nodded, her heart pounding. Did you ever see documents or communications that seemed unusual? Anything that stood out, even if you didn't understand it at the time? Elara closed her eyes, thinking back. 3 years of living in Clyde's house. 3 years of being invisible. But invisible people saw things. Heard things. There was a safe, she said slowly. In his study. He thought I didn't know about it, but I saw him open it once. He kept it hidden behind a painting of a mountain landscape. Do you remember the combination? No. But I remember the painting. It was distinctive. A red mountain peak at sunset with 3 birds flying across it. She opened her eyes. He also kept a ledger separate from his business records. A small black book. He always carried it with him during meetings with certain people. He never let it out of his sight. Derek exchanged a look with Harlan. We need to search his house. That requires cause, Harlan pointed out. And a warrant from the council. Then we'll get one. Derek's voice was hard. If Voss is arming mercenaries and destabilizing territories, he's a threat to the crown. That's all the cause we need. Elara stood abruptly. I can get you into the house. Both men turned to stare at her. Absolutely not, Derek said immediately. I know the layout. I know his routines. I know which floorboards creak and which doors stick and where he keeps his spare keys. Elara's voice was steady despite her racing heart. You need me. What I need is for you to stay safe. Derek crossed to her, his hands hovering like he wanted to touch her but didn't dare. You're not going anywhere near that man. He's going to find out I'm here eventually. You said so yourself. She lifted her chin. I'd rather face him on my terms than wait for him to come for me. She has a point, Harlan said quietly. Derek shot him a glare that could have melted steel. Whose side are you on? Hers, and yours, and the Pack's. Harlan moved closer. If Voss is working with mercenaries, we need that evidence before he destroys it. Miss Moonveil is our best chance of getting it quickly and quietly. No. Derek's voice was flat. I won't risk her. Then you're not just her mate. You're her jailer. Elara's words came out sharper than she intended, but she didn't take them back. You keep saying I have choices. You keep saying you want me to be free. But the moment I choose something you don't like, you shut it down. Derek flinched like she'd struck him. That's not fair. Isn't it? She gestured at the documents spread across the table. You brought me into this investigation. You asked for my help. You wanted me to use my knowledge of Clyde and his business. But now that I'm offering real help, you're treating me like a child who needs protecting. Because you do need protecting. Derek's voice rose. You have no training, no combat experience, no way to defend yourself if something goes wrong. Then train me, or send guards with me, or come yourself. Elara stepped closer to him, and she saw him tense. Saw his control waver. But don't tell me I can't do this because you're afraid. Of course I'm afraid. The admission exploded out of him. I just found you, Elara. After 2 centuries of waiting, I finally have my mate, and she wants to walk back into the house of a man who treated her like property so she can help me gather evidence against him. Yes, I'm afraid. Silence fell. Rain drummed against the windows. Harlan very quietly excused himself and slipped out of the room. Elara stared at Derek, seeing him truly vulnerable for the first time. His perfect control cracked, showing the man underneath. The man who cared too much and tried too hard to hide it. I'm afraid too, she said softly. I'm terrified. But I spent 3 years being afraid and doing nothing, letting Clyde control every aspect of my life because I was too scared to fight back. Her voice strengthened. I'm not that person anymore. I can't be. And if you want me as your mate, as your equal, you have to let me be strong. Derek's eyes closed. When he opened them again, she saw resignation mixed with pride. You're going to give me a heart attack, aren't you? Probably. And if I forbid this? Then I'll sneak out and do it anyway. And you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if you can actually trust me. A reluctant smile tugged at his mouth. You're manipulating me. I'm being honest with you. There's a difference. Derek scrubbed a hand over his face, then moved to the door and called for Harlan. The security chief returned immediately, as if he'd been waiting right outside. If we do this, and I mean if, it's under very specific conditions, Derek said. Full security team. You wear a communication device at all times. At the first sign of danger, you extract immediately. Agreed, Elara said. You follow Harlan's instructions without question. Agreed. And I'm coming with you. She hesitated. That might not be wise. If Clyde sees you... He won't. I can be subtle when necessary. Derek's expression turned grim. But I'm not sending you into that house without me. That's non-negotiable. Elara nodded. She could give him that much. When do we go? Tonight, Harlan said. Voss has a business dinner scheduled across town. He'll be gone for hours. It's our best window. Derek looked at Elara one more time. Are you absolutely certain about this? She thought about the girl who had climbed out a window 4 nights ago. The girl who had hidden in a limousine, terrified and bleeding. She thought about how far she'd come in such a short time. How much further she still wanted to go. I'm certain, she said. Derek nodded slowly. Then we prepare. Harlan, assemble a team. Discreet, capable, and absolutely loyal. No one outside this room knows where we're going or why. Understood, Your Majesty. As Harlan left to make arrangements, Derek turned back to Elara. This time he did reach out, his hand cupping her cheek gently. The touch sent electricity through her entire body, and her wolf surged in response. Promise me you'll be careful, he said quietly. I promise. And promise me that if anything feels wrong, you'll trust your instincts and get out. I promise. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, and Elara's breath caught. They stood frozen like that for a long moment, the mate bond thrumming between them like a living thing. I don't think I can lose you, Derek whispered. Not when I've only just found you. Elara covered his hand with hers, holding it against her face. You won't. I'm tougher than I look. I'm beginning to realize that. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His forehead rested against hers, and they breathed the same air, their wolves recognizing and accepting what their human sides were still learning. Tonight, then, Derek said. Tonight, Elara agreed, and prayed they would both survive what came next. The house looked different in the darkness, smaller somehow, less imposing. Elara crouched behind a stone wall across the street, watching the windows that had once been her prison. No lights, no movement. Clyde was still at his dinner, just as Harlan's intelligence had predicted. Derek knelt beside her, dressed in black tactical gear that made him look even more dangerous than usual. Behind them, 6 guards waited in the shadows. Professional, silent, ready. Remember the plan, Derek murmured. In and out, 15 minutes maximum. We get the safe contents and the black ledger if you can find it. Nothing else matters. Elara nodded. She wore similar dark clothing, and Harlan had given her a small communication device that fit in her ear. She felt like a character in a spy novel. Except this was real, and the danger was real, and her heart was hammering so hard she thought Derek must be able to hear it. "I can still do this alone," Harlan offered for the third time. "You've given us enough information." "No," Elara interrupted. "I know where everything is. I can find things faster than you could." "We're wasting time." Derek looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "On my signal." They moved as one unit across the street, shadows among shadows. The back entrance was locked, but Elara led them to a window she'd left unlatched months ago during one of her first escape attempts. She'd never used it, had been too afraid, but she'd kept it loose, just in case. The window slid open silently. Derek went through first, clearing the room before signaling for Elara to follow. They were in the kitchen, dark and cold. The smell of the place hit her hard. Memories flooded back. Meals eaten in silence. Clyde's criticism of everything she did. The constant tension. She pushed it away and focused. "The study is upstairs," she whispered. "Second door on the right. The safe is behind the mountain painting. North wall." Derek deployed his team with hand signals. 2 guards stayed at the entrance. 2 more positioned themselves in the hallway. Derek, Elara, and Harlan moved toward the stairs. Every step felt like a lifetime. Every creak of the floor made her freeze. But the house remained silent. Empty. They reached the 2nd floor without incident. Clyde's study was exactly as she remembered. Dark wood furniture, heavy curtains, the faint smell of cigars and old paper, and there on the north wall, the painting of the red mountain with 3 birds in flight. Derek approached it carefully and lifted it from the wall. Behind it, set into the plaster, was a small digital safe. He looked at Elara. "Any idea about the combination?" "Try my mother's birthday. He uses it for everything. 3, 1, 7, 6. Derek input the numbers. The safe beeped once and remained locked. "Try it backward," Elara suggested, her mind racing. He always did things backward when he wanted to hide them. 6, 7, 1, 3. Another beep. Then a click. The safe door swung open. Derek pulled out the contents quickly and efficiently. Papers, documents, a small leather pouch that clinked with the sound of coins, and underneath everything, a flash drive. "Got it," he murmured into his communication device. "Extracting now." "Wait." Elara moved to Clyde's desk. "The ledger. He keeps it in here somewhere." "We don't have time." "Just give me 30 seconds." She yanked open drawers, searching by touch and memory. Where would Clyde hide something he wanted close but not obvious? Not the locked drawer. Too obvious. Not the top drawers. Too accessible. The bottom drawer on the left stuck slightly when opened. She'd noticed it years ago. Elara pulled hard and the drawer came loose. Behind it, taped to the underside of the desk, was a small black notebook. "Found it." A sound from downstairs froze them all. A door opening. Footsteps. And then a voice that made Elara's blood turn to ice. "Quite the profitable evening, Rufus. I think our arrangement will work out beautifully." Clyde. He was home early. Derek's hand closed around Elara's wrist. "We leave. Now." But it was too late. The footsteps were already on the stairs. Clyde's voice grew louder, accompanied by a second male voice she recognized as Rufus Haskins. "Let me just grab those documents from my study, and we can finalize." The study door opened. Clyde Voss stood in the doorway, his hand still on the knob, his expression shifting from surprise to shock to cold fury in the space of a heartbeat. Behind him, Rufus Haskins reached for something under his jacket. Derek moved faster than Elara could process. He shoved her behind him, his body a shield, while simultaneously making a gesture that brought his guards rushing up the stairs. Elara. Clyde's voice was soft, deadly. What are you doing in my house? She stepped out from behind Derek, forcing herself to stand tall. This was my house too. For 3 years, you made sure I knew I lived here on your sufferance. And now you break in like a common thief? Clyde's eyes moved to Derek, and something flickered in them. Recognition. Your Majesty. What an unexpected honor. Derek's voice was cold enough to freeze blood. Clyde Voss, you are under arrest for treason, arms trafficking, and conspiracy against the crown. On what evidence? The evidence we just confiscated from your safe. Derek held up the flash drive. Would you like to explain why you have detailed records of illegal weapons sales to known mercenary groups? Or should we start with the black ledger documenting every bribe you've paid to border guards? Clyde's composure cracked. Rufus pulled a gun, but Derek's guards had weapons trained on him before he could aim. The standoff lasted 3 seconds before Rufus wisely dropped his weapon and raised his hands. Clyde's eyes never left Elara. You did this. You ungrateful little... Careful, Derek interrupted, his voice dropping to a growl. Choose your next words very carefully. She was nothing when I took her in, Clyde continued, ignoring the warning. A pathetic orphan with no prospects and no value. I gave her a home, food, shelter. I made her into something useful, and this is how she repays me? Useful, Elara repeated, her voice shaking, not with fear, with rage. Is that what you call it? Locking me in my room at night? Isolating me from everyone? Teaching me to hate my own wolf? Selling me to the highest bidder? Clyde's smile was cruel. You were merchandise, girl. Nothing more. And not particularly valuable merchandise at that. Do you know how hard it was to find someone willing to take you? Derek moved, and for a moment, Elara thought he might actually kill Clyde with his bare hands. But he stopped himself with visible effort, his control absolute despite the fury in his eyes. You will never speak to her again, Derek said quietly. You will never speak about her. You will not think her name. Because if you do, I will make you regret every breath you've taken since the day you were born. She's nothing, Clyde spat. A broken little wolf with no pack and no purpose. She'll never be anything more. Elara stepped forward. Before Derek could stop her, before anyone could react, she drew back her hand and slapped Clyde across the face with every ounce of strength she possessed. The crack echoed through the study. Clyde staggered, touching his reddening cheek in shock. Elara leaned in close and spoke directly into his face. I am something you will never be. I am free. Then she turned her back on him and walked toward Derek, her head high, her shoulders straight. Behind her, she heard Harlan giving orders, the sound of handcuffs clicking into place, Clyde beginning to protest and threaten. She didn't look back. Derek caught her hand as she passed, squeezing gently. Pride radiated from him, mixing with relief and lingering fear. Together they walked down the stairs and out of the house that had been her prison. The night air had never smelled sweeter. Outside, away from Clyde's guards and prying eyes, Derek finally pulled Elara into his arms. She went stiff for just a moment, then melted into his embrace, letting him hold her while she shook. You were incredible, he murmured into her hair. I hit a prisoner, she said shakily. He deserved worse. I don't know if I want to laugh or cry. You could do both. I won't tell anyone. Elara did laugh then, a slightly hysterical sound that turned into a sob. Derek held her through it, his strength solid and steady, his scent grounding her. It's over, she whispered. It's really over. It's over, Derek confirmed. He can't hurt you anymore. They stood like that for a long moment, two figures in the darkness, while around them, Harlan efficiently organized the arrest and evidence collection. Finally, Derek pulled back enough to look down at her. "Let's go home," he said. Home. Not the palace. Not his house. Home. Elara nodded and let him lead her to the waiting car. The trial was swift. With the evidence from Clyde's safe and the testimony of several border guards who agreed to cooperate in exchange for leniency, the case was airtight. Clyde Voss and Rufus Haskins were convicted of treason and sentenced to life imprisonment in the northern work camps. Their assets were seized, their names struck from the territory records. It was as if they had never existed. Elara watched the sentencing from the gallery, Derek seated beside her. When the verdict was read, she felt nothing. No satisfaction, no joy. Just a quiet sense of closure. Afterward, they walked together through the palace gardens. It was a beautiful afternoon, warm and bright, with flowers blooming everywhere. Spring was coming early this year. "How do you feel?" Derek asked. "Tired," Elara admitted. "Relieved. Strange." She paused at a fountain, trailing her fingers through the cool water. "I thought I would feel different once he was gone, but I'm still me, still broken in places." "You're not broken." Derek moved to stand beside her. "You're healing. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes." He turned to face her fully. "Elara, we need to talk. About us. About the bond. About what happens next." Her stomach clenched. This was it. The moment she'd been avoiding. "What about it?" "You've been here almost 2 weeks now. You've seen how I live, how I rule, what my life entails. You've met my council, my guards, my closest advisors." Derek's voice was steady, but she heard the tension underneath. "I've given you time and space to decide. I think I've been patient. You have been. But I can't wait forever, Elara. The bond is driving me insane. My wolf wants you, I want you, and I need to know—" His voice roughened. "I need to know if there's any chance you might want me too." Elara looked at him, really looked at him. This powerful, patient man who had given her everything she'd asked for and demanded nothing in return. Who had protected her and believed in her and treated her like she mattered. "I'm afraid," she whispered. "Of me? Of this? Of feeling too much? Of giving you power over me and having it destroy me when you realize I'm not worth it?" Derek's jaw tightened. "Do you honestly believe that's possible? After everything we've been through? You're an alpha king. I'm nobody. This bond might feel real now, but what happens in a year? 10 years? A century? When you get bored of your broken mate and start looking for someone better?" "There is no one better." Derek caught her hands, holding them gently. "Do you want to know what I see when I look at you? I see a woman who survived 3 years of cruelty with her spirit intact, who risked her life to bring down a traitor, who faced her abuser and walked away stronger. I see someone brave and brilliant and so achingly beautiful it hurts to breathe when you're near me." Tears pricked at Elara's eyes. "You barely know me." "Then let me know you better. Let me spend the rest of my life learning every thought in your head and every dream in your heart." He raised her hands to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "I'm not asking you to accept the bond today. I'm not even asking you to love me yet. I'm just asking you to try, to give us a real chance." Elara's wolf was howling inside her, desperate to accept, to claim, to complete the bond. But her human heart needed more than instinct. "What if I can't be what you need?" she asked. "What if I'm too damaged? What if you're exactly what I need? What if your strength comes from your scars, not in spite of them?" Derek stepped closer, and she could feel the heat of him, smell that intoxicating pine and smoke scent. "Elara, I don't want a perfect mate. I want you. Why? Because you're real. Because you challenge me and surprise me and make me want to be better. His voice dropped to a whisper. Because from the moment you looked at me in that limousine, terrified and apologizing for bleeding on my floor mats, I was lost. She laughed through her tears. That's a terrible basis for a relationship. Is it? Or is it the most honest one possible? Derek released one of her hands to cup her face. I won't hurt you, Elara. I won't control you or diminish you or make you feel like you're less than you are. I swear it on my life, on my crown, on everything I am. Elara searched his eyes and saw only truth, only sincerity, only a desperate hope that matched the feeling growing in her own chest. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. I don't know how to be someone's mate. I don't know how to trust or love or any of it. Neither do I. Not really. I've read about it, prepared for it, imagined it. But the reality is different than I expected. Derek's thumb brushed away a tear on her cheek. We'll figure it out together. We'll make mistakes and fix them. We'll have arguments and disagreements. But we'll do it as equals, Elara. Always as equals. She wanted to believe him. Wanted it so badly it ached. Can I have more time? She asked. Just a little more? Derek nodded, though she saw the flicker of disappointment in his eyes. Of course. Take all the time you need. I'm not saying no, she clarified quickly. I'm just saying not yet. Is that okay? It's more than okay. It's honest. He managed a smile. Though my wolf might stage a rebellion if I make him wait much longer. Elara felt her own wolf surge in response. The pull between them was growing stronger every day. Soon it would be unbearable for both of them. Derek? She licked her lips nervously. Could you kiss me? Just once? So I know what it feels like. His eyes flared gold. Are you sure? No, but I want to try. Derek moved slowly, giving her every opportunity to change her mind. His hand slid into her hair, cradling the back of her head. His other arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer but not crushing. And then his lips met hers, and Elara's entire world exploded. The bond roared to life between them. She felt his emotions, desire, reverence, desperate longing, mixing with her own. She felt his wolf recognizing hers, calling to her, claiming her. She tasted pine and smoke and something uniquely Derek. And underneath it all, she felt safe, cherished, wanted. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. Derek rested his forehead against hers, his eyes closed, his control visibly fraying. That was... Elara couldn't find words. Yes, Derek agreed roughly. Yes, it was. They stood like that for a long moment, neither willing to move, both afraid of what came next. Finally, Derek pulled back, though he kept hold of her hand. I should go, he said, before I do something we're not ready for. Elara nodded, though part of her wanted to beg him to stay. Derek? He paused, looking back at her. Thank you, for waiting, for being patient, for seeing me. His smile was soft. Always, Elara. For you, always. After he left, Elara sank onto a bench beside the fountain and touched her lips. They still tingled from his kiss. Her wolf was pacing restlessly, demanding more, demanding completion. But her heart needed to catch up to her instincts. Needed to fully believe that this was real, that Derek meant everything he said, that she could trust him with her battered soul. She had come so far in 2 weeks, from hiding in a limousine to confronting her abuser to kissing an alpha king. But the final step, accepting the bond completely, still felt impossibly large. Maybelle found her there an hour later, still sitting by the fountain, lost in thought. There you are, dear. I was getting worried. The older woman settled beside her. Rough afternoon? Confusing afternoon, Elara corrected. Derek asked me about the bond. And what did you tell him? That I needed more time. She looked at Maybelle. Am I being foolish? He's perfect, kind, patient, strong. Any woman would be lucky to have him. But you're not any woman, Maybelle said gently. You're you, with your own wounds and fears and needs. She patted Elara's hand. His Majesty understands that. He'll wait as long as it takes. What if it takes forever? It won't. I've seen the way you look at him when you think no one's watching. Maybelle's eyes twinkled. You're already half in love with him, dear. You're just scared to admit it. Was she? Elara examined her feelings carefully. She cared about Derek. Trusted him more than she'd trusted anyone in years. Wanted his company, his touch, his approval. When he smiled at her whole day brightened. When he was away, she missed him. That was love, wasn't it? Or at least the beginning of it. What if I mess this up? Elara whispered. What if I accept the bond and then ruin everything? Then you ruin it and fix it and learn and grow. Maybelle stood, pulling Elara up with her. Love isn't about being perfect, dear. It's about being brave enough to try. Brave. Elara had been brave when she ran from Clyde. Brave when she confronted him. Maybe it was time to be brave in a different way. Maybelle? She said as they walked back toward the palace. Do you know where Derek is right now? His private chambers, I believe. He said he had correspondence to attend to. Elara nodded, her heart beginning to race. Thank you. She left Maybelle in the corridor and made her way to Derek's wing of the palace. Guards nodded at her as she passed, familiar with her presence now. No one stopped her. No one questioned. She knocked on Derek's door before she could lose her nerve. Come in. Derek looked up from his desk as she entered, surprise and pleasure crossing his face. Elara, is everything all right? I've been thinking, she said without preamble. About what you said. About us. He stood slowly. And I'm still scared. I'm still broken in places. I still don't know how to be a proper mate or queen or whatever it is you need me to be. She crossed the room to stand in front of him. But I want to try. With you. If you still want me. Derek's eyes blazed gold. If I still want you? His voice was rough. Elara, I've wanted nothing but you since the moment I scented you in my car. Then I'm saying yes. To the bond. To us. To whatever comes next. For one moment, Derek simply stared at her. Then he moved, closing the distance between them in 2 strides and pulling her into his arms. This kiss was different from the first. Deeper. More certain. A claiming and a promise all at once. When they broke apart, both of them were trembling. Derek rested his forehead against hers, his hands framing her face. Say it again, he whispered. I need to hear you say it again. I accept the bond. I accept you. I choose this. Elara met his eyes. I choose us. The bond completed with a snap that resonated through her entire being. Elara gasped as she suddenly felt everything Derek felt. His love, his relief, his absolute certainty. And underneath it all, his wolf singing in triumph. Her own wolf responded, no longer caged or ashamed, but free and powerful, and finally home. I love you, Derek said quietly. I know it's fast and probably too soon to say, but I need you to know. I love you. Elara smiled through happy tears. I think I love you too, or at least I'm well on my way to it. I'll take it. Derek kissed her again, soft and sweet. We have all the time in the world for the rest. The formal mating ceremony took place a month later. though the bond had been complete since that evening in Derek's chambers. Elara had insisted on waiting, wanting to be sure of her choice in the clear light of day rather than the heat of emotion. Derek had agreed, patient as always, though she felt his wolf's restlessness through their connection. Those weeks had been transformative. Elara had trained with the palace guards, learning to defend herself and to trust her wolf's instincts. She had attended council meetings, discovering she had a talent for diplomacy and mediation. She had explored the territory, meeting packs and learning the complexities of Derek's rule. And she had fallen deeper in love with her mate every single day. Now she stood in a private grove on the palace grounds, wearing a gown of deep midnight blue that seemed to capture starlight in its folds. The ceremony was small, intimate. Just Derek, Elara, and a handful of witnesses including Maybelle, Harlan, and the pack elders. The priestess conducting the ceremony was ancient, her eyes milky with cataracts but somehow still seeing everything. She spoke the old words, the traditional vows, her voice carrying clearly through the grove. Derek Nightborne, Alpha King, do you claim this woman as your mate, to protect and cherish, to honor and support, for all the days of your life? I do. Derek's voice was steady, his eyes never leaving Elara's face. Elara Moonveil, do you accept this male as your mate, to stand beside and challenge, to trust and love, for all the days of your life? Elara's voice didn't waver. I do. Then by the power vested in me by the ancient pacts and the moon above, I declare you mated before witnesses and gods alike. The priestess smiled. You may seal the bond. Derek pulled Elara close and kissed her as if it were the first time and the last time all at once. Through their bond, she felt his joy, his pride, his overwhelming love. And she sent back her own emotions, no longer afraid to feel them fully. When they broke apart, the gathered witnesses erupted in cheers and howls. Elara laughed, burying her face in Derek's chest while he held her tight. My queen, he murmured into her hair. My mate, my Elara. My king, she whispered back. My Derek. The celebration afterward was larger, with hundreds of pack members gathering in the palace gardens. Music played. Food and wine flowed freely. Wolves danced under the stars, and for the first time in her life, Elara felt like she truly belonged. She stood on a balcony overlooking the festivities, Derek's arm around her waist, and marveled at how much her life had changed. 3 months ago, she had been hiding in a limousine, terrified and alone. Now she wore a crown of moonflowers and stood beside the Alpha King as his equal. What are you thinking? Derek asked, sensing her contemplative mood through their bond. That fairy tales do come true sometimes, she said. Just not the way you expect them to. No? Derek turned her to face him. What did you expect? I don't know. A prince on a white horse, a grand rescue, something simple and clean. She smiled up at him. But this was better? Messier and more complicated and more real. Because you saved yourself, Derek said. I just gave you a safe place to land. We saved each other, Elara corrected. You needed me as much as I needed you. More, Derek agreed. So much more. Below them, the party continued. But up here, in their private moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. 2 broken people who had found wholeness in each other. 2 lonely souls who had discovered they were never meant to be alone. I have something for you, Derek said, pulling a small box from his pocket. A mating gift. Inside was a pendant on a delicate silver chain. The pendant was shaped like a wolf mid-leap, and in the moonlight, Elara could see tiny emeralds for eyes. It's beautiful, she breathed. It reminded me of you, strong and graceful and free. Derek fastened it around her neck, his fingers lingering on her skin. I wanted you to have something that celebrated who you've become, not who you were before. Elara touched the pendant, feeling the weight of it settle over her heart. I love it. Thank you. There's one more thing. Derek's tone turned serious. I've been thinking about Clyde's assets. They're technically property of the crown now, which means they're mine to distribute. Elara tensed. She didn't want anything that had belonged to Clyde. Didn't want any reminder of that life. Derek must have felt her reaction through the bond because he quickly continued. I want to create a foundation, a safe house for wolves fleeing abuse or control, a place where they can find sanctuary, get training, rebuild their lives. He looked at her intently. And I want you to run it, if you're willing. Elara stared at him. You're serious? Completely. You understand what those wolves need better than anyone. You've lived it. You've survived it. You're the perfect person to help others do the same. Derek cupped her face. You said you wanted to matter because you're you. This is how. By taking your pain and transforming it into purpose. Tears spilled down Elara's cheeks. Not from sadness this time, but from overwhelming gratitude and love. Yes. Yes, I'll do it. You're sure? It won't be easy. There will be difficult days and harder stories and... Elara kissed him, cutting off his concerns. I'm sure. It's perfect. They held each other as the celebration continued below, making plans and dreaming dreams. The foundation would be based in the city, accessible but secure. They would need counselors, trainers, legal advocates. It would take time and resources and patience. But they had all of that now. They had each other and a future that stretched out bright and hopeful. As the moon rose higher, Derek led Elara back down to the party. They danced together, wolves and humans alike celebrating their union. Maybelle cried happy tears. Harlan gave a speech about duty and love that was surprisingly moving for a military man. The council members toasted to the health and happiness of their king and his new queen. And through it all, Elara felt the bond humming between them, steady and strong and permanent. She was no longer alone, no longer afraid, no longer defined by her trauma. She was Elara Nightborne now, mate to the Alpha King, and she was finally, truly free. Later that night, in Derek's chambers, their chambers now, they lay together in the darkness, exhausted but content. Derek's fingers traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder, and Elara felt completely at peace for the first time in her life. Do you ever think about that night? She asked softly. When I hid in your limousine? Every day, Derek admitted. I thank whatever gods were listening that you chose my car to hide in, that I came back when I did, that I didn't just put you out when I found you. I was so scared. I know. I felt it through the bond before it even fully formed. Your terror was so absolute. His arms tightened around her. But you were brave too. Even terrified, even broken, you still fought, still ran, still tried to save yourself. And you let me, Elara said. You could have forced the bond, could have claimed me immediately. But you gave me time and space and choice. Because that's what love does. It gives. It doesn't take. Elara shifted to look up at him in the moonlight streaming through the windows. I never thought I'd feel this way about anyone. Never thought I'd trust someone enough to let them in. But you proved me wrong. We proved each other wrong. Derek corrected. You taught me that patience and respect matter more than power. That real strength comes from letting go of control, not grasping for more of it. They kissed slowly, savoring each other, in no rush. They had forever now, an eternity to love and learn and grow together. Thank you, Elara whispered against his lips, for seeing me, for waiting for me, for believing I was worth it. You are worth everything, Derek said fiercely. Never doubt that. And for the first time in 3 years, Elara didn't. She believed him, believed in their bond, believed in the future they would build together. She had hidden in a limousine to escape her past. And in doing so, she had found her future. Her mate. Her home. Love hadn't saved her, just as Derek had said that first night. She had saved herself. But love had been there to meet her when she arrived, and that made all the difference. 6 months later, Elara stood in the newly opened Moonveil sanctuary, watching as the first residents settled into their rooms. The building had once been a manor on the edge of the city, but they had transformed it completely. Bright, open spaces, gardens for peace and reflection, training rooms, counseling offices, everything a wolf fleeing abuse might need to start over. "You've done something extraordinary here," Maybelle said, coming to stand beside her. The older woman had agreed to help run the sanctuary, bringing her warmth and wisdom to the project. "We've done something extraordinary," Elara corrected. "I couldn't have built this alone. But it was your vision, your heart." Maybelle smiled. "You should be proud." Elara was proud, prouder than she'd ever been of anything. This place represented everything she'd wished for during those dark years with Clyde. A safe haven, a second chance, hope. She touched the wolf pendant at her throat, feeling its familiar weight. Then she felt Derek's presence through their bond, warm and comforting even though he was at the palace dealing with council matters. Her mate, her partner, her equal. Life wasn't perfect. They still had challenges, political tensions with neighboring territories, economic concerns, the ongoing work of justice and reform. But they faced it all together, and that made even the hardest days bearable. A young woman approached Elara hesitantly. She was thin, her eyes haunted, her movements cautious. But she held her head high. "Excuse me, are you Queen Elara?" "Just Elara," she corrected gently. "And yes, I am. I wanted to thank you, for this place, for giving us somewhere to go." The woman's voice cracked. "I didn't think anyone would help. But then I heard about the sanctuary, and I knew I had to try." Elara took the woman's hands in hers. "You're safe here. No one will hurt you or control you, or make you feel less than you are. And when you're ready, we'll help you build whatever future you choose." The woman nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. Thank you so much." As she walked away to finish settling in, Maybelle squeezed Elara's shoulder. "That's why you do this." That look on her face. The hope you just gave her. "The hope someone once gave me," Elara said softly. That evening, she returned to the palace to find Derek waiting for her. He pulled her into his arms immediately, and she melted into his embrace. "How was the first day?" he asked. "Perfect. Terrifying. Wonderful." She pulled back to smile at him. "Exactly what I hoped for. I'm proud of you. I know. I feel it." She tapped her chest where their bond lived. "Constantly." Derek laughed and kissed her forehead. "Good. You should feel it. You've earned it." They walked together through the palace gardens, hand in hand, talking about their respective days. Elara shared stories of the sanctuary residents. Derek discussed council politics and trade negotiations. They planned dinner with friends, debated what book to read next, argued playfully about whether roses or lavender smelled better. They were partners, equals, mates. And as the sun set over the palace grounds, painting the sky in brilliant shades of gold and pink, Elara realized she had everything she'd ever wanted. Not the fairy tale she'd imagined as a child, but something better, something real. She had run from darkness into light, had hidden in fear, and emerged in love. Had survived abuse and built sanctuary from the ashes of her pain, and she had found, in the most unexpected place, the one person who saw her completely and loved her anyway. Derek caught her staring and raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Nothing," Elara said, smiling. "Just thinking about how lucky I am." "We're both lucky." Derek pulled her close. "I found my mate hiding in my limousine. That's not exactly a traditional love story." "No," Elara agreed, leaning into him. "But it's ours." And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.